Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining me today. We are going to talk about what to do with all that stuff in your garden today. Um, so my name is Heidi McIndoe. I'm a registered dietitian. So the chat is open. I can see it right now. So if you guys have questions or comments as we're going along, please feel free to pop them in the chat at any time. You don't need to wait until the end, just when you're thinking of them, or if there's something you want to share, feel free to do that as well. Not just anything, but if it has something to do with preserving produce or what you do with your fruits and veggies, that would be awesome. So let's get started here. Got a lot of stuff to cover. So our agenda today, why food preservation? Why do we want to preserve food? Some different ways to preserve produce, and we're going to go through some tips for how to do so. All right. So why do we want to preserve food? Obviously, preserving food is going to help it last longer. This time of year, especially as people are pulling things out of their gardens or their neighbors' gardens, or their neighbors or coworkers are bringing you things, there's only so many zucchini you can use in one day, or, so many tomatoes or so many cucumbers. So it's nice to have a way to extend that. So what this does, when you can extend the shelf life of these fruits and veggies, obviously it helps you save money because you're not throwing away food. You're not uh, throwing something away that went bad and then the next day needing to go to the store and buy the same thing. It's going to prevent food waste, which I hate waste of any kind, especially hate wasting food. So if you can find a way to make it last longer, that is a great way to not throw it in the garbage. And it just promotes healthy eating because ideally what we're preserving are healthy foods, uh, again, fruits and vegetables. And so by making that food available for a longer period of time, you're just promoting more healthy eating. Again, just the whole idea of it sort of all wraps into one. If you have all this food and you don't have a way to preserve it or you don't preserve it, A, you're going to throw it out and have all this garbage. B, you're going to waste money because you need to go to the store now and buy more stuff to eat. And C, maybe you're going to be relying on less. I mean, not to say you can't buy healthy food at the store, because obviously you can, but you might be relying a little bit more inclined to buy less healthy food than you would if you had all those, cherry tomatoes or raspberries or strawberries or whatever it is you grew in your garden. So what we need to do to preserve food is we have to reduce the growth of bacteria and we have to reduce the breakdown of food. And both of these things are impacted by the food's exposure to different temperatures, oxygen, moisture, the pH level, and time, how long something um, is around, basically around, not no longer on the vine, no longer growing, but that in that state of not growing anymore. That state between growing and breaking down. So I am going to talk today about 4 different ways to preserve food. I'm curious, who does any kind of preservation? Anybody can or do anything? I would love to hear what you do, um, what foods you use, and what you do with them. So first, we're going to start with canning. So canning is a way you seal the food in airtight containers, and then you heat it. And so that's going to so you're going to kill, the heat is going to kill whatever bacteria may be there. And by putting them in airtight containers, you are going to be preserving that clean environment. Nothing else is going to get in there. So that's just going to help prevent spoilage. I always think it's funny that it's called canning, but you do it in jars. I always thought that. Um, Anyways, we are also sealing out oxygen. And remember, that's one of the things that can break down food and lead to problems. And again, the heat just kills that bacteria. Tomatoes, cucumbers, peaches, green beans. There's lots of different fruits that you can preserve, fruits and vegetables, sorry, that you can preserve this way. And also jams and jellies are great this way. I have made cherry jam and blueberry and apple jelly, red raspberry. So just any of those, summer berries are great. And actually, what actually helps reduce the bacteria growth in jams and jellies is the sugar, ironically. So we want to make sure that um, we're doing this properly. And I'm going to go through a couple of methods. I was going to say one of the things I love to do, I don't do it every year, but for Thanksgiving, I always make the applesauce, huge batch of applesauce. And I always hate throwing away all those peels. So I found a way, I found a recipe. You can save the cores and the peels. I leave them in the freezer for a few years. And then I actually make apple jelly out of the cores and the peels. It's delicious. It's beautiful. And it's a great way. I'm really talking about preventing food waste or, using everything. So there are two methods to can. There's a water bath method. This is the most common thing that especially beginners are going to do. And there's a pressure canning method. So I will tell you the truth. I have not done anything in the pressure canning method. Pressure canning are things that maybe have low acidity. So we're talking meats and vegetables and soups, things like that. I've never canned anything like that. The water bath method is where we're talking fruits and jellies and jams and tomatoes, tomato sauces, things like that, things that are more high acid. And so remember, I said what we want to do is we want to make sure they are airtight. So when you are canning, and this is true for any food preservation method, you want to make sure all of your equipment, everything is very, very clean because we don't want to seal bacteria in, or we don't want to make sure, or we want to make sure. So one of the things you do when you're canning jelly using the water bath method, canning anything, you boil everything, your jars, lids, all that stuff. And then you want to make sure that there's no dirt or anything on the lid. You want to make sure they get a complete seal, because if there's something in there, maybe an old piece of food or anything that may prevent the seal from forming, you are now not making an airtight seal, and now bacteria can get in there. So we don't want to do that. So again, common foods for canning: tomatoes. Tomatoes you can do so much. You can make homemade salsa, you can make homemade sauce, you can crush tomatoes, you can just, take those plum tomatoes and make whole tomatoes. Think of what you can buy in the canned tomato aisle. You can do that with any tomatoes and can it yourself. And it's just such a great, um, I think it's such a great thing to have this food that you saw as a fresh food, and in the summer and in the fall, and then in the middle of January and February, open that up and you just smell and taste all that freshness. Cucumbers are great for canning, turning them into pickles, whatever kind of pickles you want. You can also, with cucumbers, you can do refrigerator pickles, so you don't even need all the high-tech equipment. So that's a great thing to do as well. Fruits, like I said, you can make fruit juices, applesauce. When I make my applesauce every Thanksgiving, I always can a few jars of it. So we have it for Easter and later for Christmas and different times throughout the year. Pie fillings, I've made blueberry pie filling. I don't think I've made apple pie filling, but again, really quick and easy if you want that freshness. But maybe, come January or December, you just don't have it in you to make a whole fresh pie. But if you've got some fruit filling that you canned yourself from the summer, then it's really easy to make something homemade. Beets and carrots, great for canning as well. They can be whole, sliced, pickled, whatever you want to do with them. You can pickle just about anything. What do we need for this? So we need the mason jars with the lids and the bands. So if you've never canned before, if you've ever been given anything in a mason jar, they have those two-part lids. So the bands is the screw-on part. The lid is the flat part, and it has this little silicone-ish type seal in the bottom of it. And that is what heats up when you're doing the boiling water after everything's in there and forms that airtight bond. So when you are using these mason jars, the lids get thrown out once the jar is empty. But the mason jars and the bands can be reused. So that's great ways to save some money and repurpose things. You need a large stock pot. You need a small saucepan, a funnel so that you can funnel the food in there and not spill food all around the outside. Remember, we want to make sure the outside and the seal specifically of that jar is nice and clean, so we get a good seal. A jar lifter, which, trust me, when you've got, a jar full of jelly or tomatoes or applesauce in a pot of boiling water, you're not reaching your hands in there. So they have these little like gripper things, weird looking tongs, basically, that you can pull the jars out of the hot water. A magnetic lifter, which is great to get those flat little metal lids out of the boiling water, because again, you don't want to touch it with your hands, and it's boiling water. Cooling rack for those jars to set on, and a ladle. These are all useful items when you are canning via a water bath specifically. Drying. All right. Drying is the oldest way of preserving food. It's been around since ancient Roman times, and it obviously it dries the food. It removes the moisture. Remember, moisture is one of those things that causes problems as food starts to get older. So by removing moisture, we're removing one of those trouble areas. And it does this by exposing the food to low heat for a long period of time. So we're not sticking something in a 500-degree oven for 20 minutes. We're talking, 140 degrees for hours, or, long, long period of time. Great for fruits. You can dry apples, bananas, pineapples, mangoes, so many different things that you can dry. Tomatoes, you can make your own not dried tomatoes. So lots of things that lend themselves to drying as well. Also, herbs are great for drying. So I grow oregano, and this time of year, I go and cut all my oregano. I lay it. I don't do with herbs. You don't need to do the whole oven dehydrator thing. I actually set it out on my patio table, and after a few days, it's dry. I crumble it into a jar, and all winter I have fresh/dried oregano for my spaghetti sauce. So when it comes to drying foods, you do want to spread them out, make them thin, slice them very thin and even sizes. If you have a hunk of apple that's a 1/4 inch thick and another one that is a 1/2 inch thick, they're not going to dry at the same rate. And so we're going to have either some get over dry or some not get dry enough, not get all that moisture out. So you want equal sizes. And the amount of time it takes depends on how big the pieces that you cut the food are, and how much air is circulating around, whether you have an actual dehydrator or an oven. And I know even these days, some of the air fryers have a dehydrate setting. So that's cool too. So lots of ways to get this done. All right. Method number 3. So freezing. Freezing is fantastic. You can freeze so many things. Really, really easy. Don't really need any special equipment. What this does is it slows that microbial growth. It is useful for fruits, vegetables, herbs. Remember I said what I do to my oregano. Herbs like big leafy herbs like basil don't do so well like that. So a great way to preserve those kinds of things is to put them in a freezer bag. And then once they're frozen, you can crush up that bag with your hand and you got to keep it in the freezer because they will get slimy once they thaw out because of the moisture content. But you can use them right from frozen. You're making your own freeze-dried herbs, basically. But yeah, just put them in a Ziploc bag. Again, once they are frozen, put them in the back of the freezer, squeeze that bag, crush them all up. When you need some, you go in, you scoop out a spoonful or whatever you need, and it's great. You can also, so this is one I've had on my to-do list forever. Somebody told me you could freeze, and I just haven't done it yet. Freeze whole tomatoes. So wash them, make sure they're dry, stick them in the freezer. And when, later on in the fall, you just sort of pull them out of the freezer, pop them in a pot, and you can make homemade sauce that way. Just again, they're not. So one thing I will say, when you're freezing fruits and vegetables, they're not going to be appropriate for eating fresh. Like you can't thaw them out and eat them, eat a handful of berries fresh, because the moisture content is so high in these foods that um, when they freeze, the freezing expands the cells, and the foods start to sort of, as they thaw out because of these burst moisture cells in them, they sort of just get soggy and weepy. But they're great for, again, cooking with, putting in smoothies, things like that, putting in pancake batter, muffin batter, things where you're not, anything where you're not eating it raw. But yeah, so you can make tomato sauce out of these frozen tomatoes, because again, you can't eat them fresh as you would a fresh one. You're not going to chop up a frozen tomato and put it in a salad. Um, but you can put them in a pot, sort of as they start to thaw, use a little masher, mash them up, and make fresh tomato sauce. So before freezing vegetables, you don't need to do this with fruit so much, but before freezing vegetables, you do want to blanch them. This is just going to affect the moisture in them. Blanch them, which means pop them in boiling water, usually just for a minute or two, and then shock them and that's going to stop the boiling process, and putting them into ice water. So you want to have this ice water bath, a big bowl of ice water ready, have the boiling water ready, put the veggies in there, like I said, a minute, 2 minutes, and then scoop them out and drop them right in the ice bath. Then you want to spread them out on maybe a dish towel on your counter, something to let them dry completely. You don't want to be freezing something that has extra water on it. Then when you go to freeze them, and this works for the fruits and the vegetables, just like that shows up there. I have a cookie sheet just like that. I have a couple of them. I line them with parchment paper, and I just spread the fruit. Again, I do it mostly with fruit. Spread the fruit out on there, pop it in the freezer. By doing it this way, you are going to get more loose frozen pieces. So in other words, if I were to take a handful of fresh raspberries and put them in a Ziploc bag and freeze them, when they're frozen, I'm going to have a brick of raspberries. But what if I want to scoop out a half a cup of raspberries? You can't do that way. You need to freeze them individually. And then once they are individually frozen, scoop them up into a Ziploc bag, into reusable Tupperware containers, whatever you freeze things in. And now they may stick together a little just because they, that frozenness on them, but you can scoop out a half a cup, whatever, handful, much easier. All right, I see a comment. Oh, that's awesome. So freeze, yeah, that's a great idea. Freezing sliced lemons. Yeah, put them on the parchment paper, freeze them, and now, yeah, add that to your drink. That's great. Actually, so my mother-in-law does this, and I was thinking of doing it. She gets lemons, like the big giant bags that say Aldi that are for super cheap. She can't even say the word, just juices them all, puts them in ice cube trays, and now when she needs to add lemon juice to something, she pops out a cube or two of fresh squeezed lemon juice, which I love that idea more than the store-bought. I'm never a fan of that bottled lemon juice. I'm not saying I don't have some in my fridge. I just don't like it. Um, all right, so that's what we want to do. But yeah, I love that idea with oh my gosh, you could do that with lemons, limes, oranges. You could have a whole little citrus assortment. Um, Final thing about the freezing is we want to make sure that we label and date everything. Yes, you may think you're going to remember what it is and when you put it in there, but trust me, there's a good chance you will not. And what I like to do too, we have a second freezer downstairs. I like to have a list on the freezer of what I put in there, because yeah, I think, yeah, I know what that is. I know what that is. And then, 6 months later, shoot, what was that? I don't remember. And I just like to remember what I have in the freezer. So, oh yeah, remember in the summer I bagged those 6 cups of blueberries or whatever it might be. Yeah, the cubes are great. All right, let's see here. And pickling. So pickling is when you are preserving something in a combination of vinegar, water, and salt. Um, Basically, yeah. So you can, I mean, the most common things that gets pickled are cucumbers. We get pickles, right? You can make, like I said, you can do refrigerator pickles, you can can pickles. The refrigerator ones are just so easy. I love to add a little thinly sliced onion when I make the refrigerator pickles. It makes a nice flavor. But yeah, you can pickle um, cucumbers, asparagus, beets. Clearly in this picture, we have radishes, red onion. Oh, pickled red onions. I don't even like red onions. I do not like raw onions at all. Um, but I don't know, something about the pickled onions. I do put a little sugar in them and they're delicious on like a burger or something. So that's always fun too. So when you do go to pickle, you want to make sure you have firm veggies. So basically, whatever you're preserving, you want the food to be in good shape because it's going to last longer. I will add a little side note to that. When you're freezing fruits and vegetables, um, they don't have to be in the top shape because again, they're not going to be, if the raspberries are starting to get a little soft, they're not firm, you can still, as long as they're not moldy, freeze them then because they're just going to get soft when you freeze them anyways. Like you're not looking at them to be a fresh vegetable. And again, because um, you're not freezing ones with mold or bacteria. They're just going a little beyond where you would like to eat them. So I always say, yeah, that's fine. But when we're doing other kinds of preserving, pickling, things like that, we do want them to be firm and not mushy. I will also say, side note of freezing fruit, bananas. If you don't freeze bananas, you need to. If you like smoothies, if you like banana bread, any of that kind of stuff, you need to be freezing your bananas because um, they're perfect. So whenever our bananas start to go a little bit too brown to eat, I peel them, I put them in a Ziploc bag. For me, my banana bread recipe calls for 3 bananas. So I have multiple Ziploc bags in the freezer with 3 bananas in them. If I have one banana to freeze, I start a new bag, and then the next time I have a banana, I add it to that bag until I have three. And then, but like I said, you do want to peel it. Do not freeze a banana in the peel with the peel on, because two things. One, you will never be able to peel a frozen banana. Two, if you wait until it thaws out to peel, it is a pile of brown mush and it's sort of gross. So get that banana peeled and put it in the freezer bag that way. You can add that frozen banana to a smoothie just as is, and it helps thicken the smoothie without the addition, without needing to add ice and things like that that are going to water down your drink. They're soft enough, you can break them in half and throw them in your blender. Or if you need to make, like I said, banana bread, or you're baking with them, put them in a bowl and let them thaw. And, you need to mash up bananas for banana bread. You thaw out frozen bananas, they're half mashed already. So just mash them up a little bit. There's going to be a little dark liquid, but that's fine. So getting back to pickling, I forgot about that banana part with the freezing. Getting back to pickling, again, we want foods with a high water content work really well. The cucumber, so firm foods with a high water content. So we're not pickling tomatoes. So cucumbers, peppers, onions, carrots, things like that. You want to cut into small pieces or slices. I say cut into what you would think of how you're going to use this. Is this a garnish? Are you putting this on burgers? Are you putting this on sandwiches? Uh, if you sprinkle them on a salad, make sure they are sliced or cut in the way you would use them on that, however you're going to use them. You want a good acidity vinegar. You want at least 5% acidity, which is either white vinegar, apple cider vinegar, rice vinegar. So we're not going to be pickling in like a balsamic vinegar. You can add spices and herbs. You can add honey and sugar. Again, I really like adding a little sugar to the pickled red onions. Just delicious. And if you are pickling the traditional way, with the water bath canner, like so pickling plus canning at the same time, you want to store them in a cool, dark place once they are canned. Or like I said, you can make refrigerator pickles, and they'll last in the refrigerator for several months. And when I say pickles, I mean, I should say pickled vegetables. So it's not just pickles. But that is basically it. These are some great, great resources. Um, if you are new to canning, preserving food, you want to go to the experts for the information. This, if done wrong, you could make yourself sick. So this is not something you want to learn on TikTok or Instagram. You want to go to where the experts are. So university and college extension agencies always have food experts available, or resources available for safe food preservation methods. The National Center for Home Food Preservation is great. These places is where you're going to get the information about, what is the best way to preserve XYZ. How long do I need to boil? If I'm canning green beans, how long do I need to boil them? Or put them in the pressure cooker, things like that. They're going to give you the times, the temperatures, and sometimes it may be an ingredient. You might need to add an ingredient to make sure the food stays safe. So we want to make sure that we have those accessible, and these are just really, really great resources for that. So like I said, that's it. If you guys have any questions or comments, please, now's a great time to pop them in the chat. You can also scan this QR code. Let us know if you liked this, if this class. So this was the preserving produce class. My name is Heidi. But yeah, I will hang out here for a minute and see if you guys have some questions. And thank you so much for joining me. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. And yeah.